Millennial brands are, millennial brands. I'm Erica Duecy, Editor-in-Chief and Chief Content Officer of VinePair. VinePair is a publication that has about 5 million readers a month on our core platform, which is vinepair.com. And then we also have a pretty large social reach and a reach across our podcast and other channels. So we reach about 20 million consumers or more in the United States, mostly every month. I think one of the biggest things that a brand needs to do to set itself up for success on social media is really to go at it strategically. So as a brand, you have to understand what your KPIs are and what you're going to look at as a successful return on investment. So if you're looking for branding and exposure, you may go to one channel like Instagram. If you're looking for conversion and visits to a physical retail location, for example, you might go to Facebook. So it's really understanding what you are going to be looking at as a measure of success, and then choosing the platforms and the content strategies that are going to get you there. For us, when we are looking to grow our brand, for branding, we are looking at a platform like Instagram. So Instagram is great for branding because a lot of people are seeing the posts and really starting to get a sense for what the DNA of your company is about. Audiences across different demographics are looking at it. So you've got Gen Xers and Millennials and even Gen Z that are looking at Instagram. Whereas if you're using Facebook or Twitter, you're going to be looking at an older audience, probably Gen X and Boomers. So when you are thinking about your crafting an audience strategy, you really want to know who it is that you're trying to reach. Yeah, I think if you're a restaurant, for example, and you can get a sense for who your demographic is, then that can help influence the types of platforms that you're going to focus on. So if I am a fine dining restaurant and I have an older clientele, then I'm probably going to be looking more at Facebook, maybe Twitter, probably also Instagram. But one of the challenges with social media is that you don't want to dilute your efforts. So it's a better idea to be very strong on one or two channels than to try to reach all of the channels. So I'd say you choose the channels that you think are going to perform the best for your audience, and then you craft a content strategy that you believe will resonate with your audience, and then you're consistent with your efforts. So that means creating the content strategy, then an actual calendar with reproducible content that you're going to be able to execute on a weekly basis. And the frequency of that content could vary depending on the brand and depending on what types of actions you're looking for. So for example, if you're looking to bring people into your retail shop, for example, you would want to be posting about the new releases, new wines, new products that you have coming in, as well as sprinkling in some educational posts so that it's not always just a sales message. You really need to mix up your messaging so that there feels like there's something of value that you're offering to your audience all the time. It's not just promotional, it's not just a one-way street. With education, you can be helping out your audience base as well as engaging them and asking them the types of things that they're interested in, for example, to get them more excited about working with you and having that relationship so that it really feels like a two-way street. I think at the beginning, maybe 5 years ago or earlier on, there was a real emphasis on feeling like the channels were professional. So if you looked at Instagram feeds and at Facebook feeds 5 years ago, I think brands looked very polished, but that didn't always translate into authenticity. So, for example, you may have been working with Instagram influencers or people who you thought represented your brand in a great way. But I think what brands have realized over time is that consumers are looking to have an authentic relationship with the brands and the restaurants and the retail shops that they're visiting. So they want to know who are the people that are working there, what are their interests, and those are the tastemakers that you can raise up. And you don't have to be engaging expensive Instagram influencers to tell those stories. You really should be sourcing from within your company and leveraging those people to tell a more on-target message about who you and your brand really are. Influencer campaigns I don't think they're right for every brand. The reason I don't think influencer campaigns are right for every brand is that you want to create that authentic messaging with your audience. And when you work with an influencer, it's most likely going to be a temporary engagement. Influencer campaigns can be useful if you're trying to reach a new audience. So if you are trying to reach the audience of a fitness enthusiast drinker, maybe you'll work with a fitness influencer and that person will represent your brand or your bar. And that can be a useful way to reach a new audience. However, I do think that it's a better use of money to spend those dollars on creating a more smart and strategic content strategy and executing on that strategy instead of going out and spending some dollars with an influencer when you really don't know what the ROI is going to be on that or if it's going to translate into any sort of measurable results. I think if you are a small company, it may be hard to justify a whole social media head, a whole social media hire. But I think a smart thing to do is to have someone on board who can execute on a strategy. So if you are working with an agency or working with a content strategist on the outside who can do that higher cost work of really helping you strategize your social media campaigns, I think that's a great idea. But then have someone in-house who can really execute on it and create some sort of consistency over the long term. There's going to be a lot of upkeep, and working with agencies can be a great solution for some brands, but the reality of the situation is that there's a lot of engagement that has to happen to maintain that two-way street with your audience. So whoever the agency is or the in-house person, they're going to have to be liking and commenting and getting involved in conversations. If you're working with an agency, that might turn into an expensive proposition. If you're working with someone in-house, there's the added benefit of having them be able to have consistent messaging, develop a consistent voice, and execute on a very regular basis. The millennial audience is incredibly important. Right now, I think every brand, regardless of where it is in the wine or spirit space, should be developing a millennial strategy. And the reason is that by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. So if you are planning on having a business after 2025, you're going to be catering to that audience, regardless of whether you want to or not. What that means is not just focusing on Facebook. If you have a Facebook only or a Twitter only strategy, you're going to be missing out on a large percentage of your potential audience. So I think it's very important to start developing that Instagram strategy. And one of the things with any types of social media is that you're going to be testing and iterating and optimizing all of the time. So you should start now and really get some campaigns going and really start to understand what resonates with that audience so that you're not caught a couple years out without having put a strategy in place. I think the most important secret weapon a marketer can have is to have a very smart content strategy. So that means a content strategist who understands the KPIs that you are most focused on. What that means is what are you trying to achieve specifically? If it's branding, there's one platform for that. If it's bringing people into the physical location, there's another platform. If it's getting in front of journalists, there's yet another platform. So I think Twitter, if you're trying to get in front of journalists, that would be one avenue I would go down. But the most important thing to know is that for every goal that you're trying to reach, there's a platform. So Twitter for getting in front of journalists, Instagram is great for getting the branding message out there and developing a strong look and feel for your restaurant or your establishment. And Facebook is great for developing an audience that comes back and visits your retail location. I think people on Facebook are used to being targeted pretty locally. And so if you need to have that local engagement and really bring people in, that's where I'd focus. I think one of the best ways to engage your audience is to elevate the people that work within your company. So, for example, at VinePair, we have a tasting director named Keith who is a lot of fun. He is someone who loves wine, loves to talk about it in a very casual way. He has no pretense. He'll sprinkle in a lot of Star Wars references and have a great time with it. And I think that type of accessible personality is something that every wine club or store or restaurant has on staff. And you can engage those people to have a fun time on camera once a week or a couple times a week to do 15-second wine reviews or whatever it may be that get a lot of engagement. Because I think one of the challenges for wine is communicating that it's not just a serious topic, it's a lot of fun and you can have fun with it. And how do you convey that? By the people you're using, by the messages you're sending, and by how you're branding your company or restaurant or what have you. So I think elevating those people that have distinctive, unique voices within your organization is a great way to create and stand out from the competition. Sometimes the best viral campaigns are not created by the brands themselves. I would look to the White Claw summer of 2019 as an example of that. There was a comedian who made a really hilarious video about White Claw, that it was flavorless but also sort of delicious, and it turned into a meme that was seen by millions and millions of people. And the smart thing that White Claw did was they didn't lean away from it or ignore it, but they leaned into it. And they realized that this comedian was appealing to men in their 20s who had previously not been fans of hard seltzer, but they started to craft really fun messaging around hard seltzer, and it took off. And hard seltzer has become now one of the most disruptive beverage categories, largely due to White Claw and the influence of its marketing. It won tons of marketing awards in 2019 because of its very smart strategy of just leaning in and going with a pretty unconventional message. I think value in social media means that you are giving back to your audience. You're not just selling to them. It's not just a one-way street. You're having a conversation with them. You're engaging them. You may be quizzing them. You may be asking them questions. You definitely should be them and providing them ways to learn more about your products. So that can be in a variety of ways. You can have classes and advertise those. You can provide little snippets of information about individual wines or about certain regions. There's a whole lot of ways that you can start to engage and have conversations that feel like they're both ways, so that I think one of the biggest mistakes is that when I look at a social media feed of a brand and it feels like they're just selling to me, that's probably the last time I'll look at that feed. I really want to feel that they're invested in developing a relationship with me, and they're also interested in what I have to say and how I'm engaging with their brand. And then when that relationship starts, I, as a consumer, also become more invested in maintaining that relationship with them. To develop a budget for social media, I think one of the key things to understand is how broad you want these campaigns to be, how big your brand is trying to get. So if you're a wine or a spirits brand, that's one ballpark of conversation. If you're a retail shop, that's another. So with a smaller example, with a retail shop, for example, if you have 5,000 local consumers, you're probably set, and you just work to engage them with content that they find interesting. If you are a large brand, a hard seltzer or a wine, what have you, and you really need to have national reach, that is an exponential amount higher. So I think the first thing to define is how large do you want your audience to get, and that will drive the conversation. And then the conversation would be around the types of the different platforms that you want to get involved in, the type of return on investment are you looking for to drive your sales through purchasing? Are you trying to get emails? Like, what are the results that you're trying to achieve with these campaigns? And once you know that, you can start to put dollar amounts to them. And I think in general, one of the biggest things that, one of the biggest problems that I see brands make is that they just blindly set a budget for social media. They don't really know what they're trying to achieve. And at the end of the day, what happens is they are just throwing money at the wall. They're not understanding what their success metrics are, and they're not understanding how they're going to be able to make a difference on the platforms that they've selected. Once you understand the success metrics that you're going after, you're in a much better place to start making some real decisions. These days, I find that millennial audiences are very interested in cross-brand collaborations. So, for example, you might have a drinks brand partnering with a glassware maker, partnering across different categories. And as a group, whether there's 2 or 3 brands together, can get together and create these campaigns where they're doing giveaways, and you follow all of the brands to be entered to win some sort of prize package that is sourced from all of the different brands. So that's an example of an organic sort of free campaign that can be put together that really only costs the cost of goods of putting together the campaign, as well as the time of the people doing it. So not every brand needs to invest in influencers or high dollar value advertising and marketing. I think there's a lot of grassroots strategies like these collaborations that can be leveraged to really have an impact and help grow followers. I'm Erica Duecy here at the CIA Bev Pro Summit. Thank you for joining us on sommeliersbusiness.com.